Thanks for clicking on this video. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the latest information and discussions. The key is strong with this one. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, already from this title, I suspect that you are intrigued by this notion. And believe me, we will get to this. But first, we need to discuss the Saiyans in general, based on quite recent information from the show's creator, Akira Toriyama. So, the Super Saiyan. The Super Saiyan transformation is the pathway to many secrets, some considered to be unnatural. Lately, we've been talking a lot about Saiyans, mostly in a historical context, but it's been a while since we've tackled their biology. Think back to our Super Saiyan genetics videos from a long time ago. And yet, there are still questions that a huge part of the fandom finds to have been left unanswered, and that's a common theme. Why is it like this? Well, that's thanks to fairly recent, well, at least for Dragonball standards, interview with Akira Toriyama himself for Psycho Jump magazine at the end of 2017, just when Ultra Instinct Goku was coming to the fore, and was at his most hype. And yes, we are aware that Toriyama tends to change his mind often, especially at times when Saiyans get new transformations, but as of now, this interview and the Broly movie that came out the next year are our newest sources of information about our favourite space monkey men. The most important part of this interview is coming, which addresses today's topic and what you see in the title. But first, Saiyan diets, because of course, somebody had to ask about Saiyan diets now, didn't they? Well, Toriyama jokingly answers that, oh, they eat anything that seems edible, yuck, yuck, yuck. For us, it's very important to note that there is an actual reasoning for this monstrous appetite that makes sense in real life. It's all about their survival instincts. This drive makes them dine anytime they possibly can. It doesn't matter if the food isn't to the best standard of taste. If it's edible, then a Saiyan will consume it. We can easily imagine that, historically, it was much harder for Saiyans to find food, back in the days on Planet Plant. So, they had to evolve the ability to be less picky, and make use of any consumable eats that they can find in order to survive. Toriyama also mentions that Saiyan children do have a slightly weaker digestive system when compared to adults, but they then quickly adapt. And this is something which is backed up and seen in the Broly movie, when the title character lands on Vampa and quickly adapts to eating the life forms on said world with little difficulty, regardless of their supposedly bitter taste. The next couple of points that Toriyama elaborates on is to do with science and technology, and whether Saiyans could feasibly produce their own tech, instead of just, pilfering it from other species. If our past theories on the subject are true, then they simply got lucky with gifts from their king, King Cold, without really having a good understanding about it in the first place. They kinda had to learn it when the army provided them with all the gadgets that they needed. So, again with the Saiyan adaptability, they were able to use said gear competently, eventually. Do you remember that one guy that Paragus was with, Beats? Well, Toriyama kind of foreshadows the appearance of Beats in this interview, which took place a year before the movie came out in Japan. A baby's battle power is measured as soon as they are born. If their numbers pass a certain standard, then they are considered upper level warriors, and immediately are raised as combatant candidates. On the other hand, those whose numbers remain low, even after a certain amount of time has passed, are regarded as lower level warriors, and become either engineers, or are sent off to a planet somewhere as infiltration babies. This is exactly what Beats represented. And from what we know, the Broly movie was already in the works at this point, so good on you, Toriyama, for sneaking that little clue in. But the most important and most controversial answer that was given in that interview is what we're mainly focusing on today. Why were Goten and Trunks able to go Super Saiyan so easily? Well, the answer comes from something modelled off of one of Akira Toriyama's favourite sci-fi series, Star Wars. And that is, of course, his theory of S-cells! Uh-oh, is this Midichlorians Part 2 but for the Dragon World? Well, allow Mr. Toriyama to explain. It's not like anyone can become a Super Saiyan through training and anger. In order to become a Super Saiyan, one's body must contain something called S-cells. Once those S-cells reach a certain amount, a trigger such as anger will explosively increase the S-cells and cause a change in the body. That's Super Saiyan. Most Saiyans have some S cells, although not a great quantity. The reason why Goku and Vegeta's children can become Super Saiyan relatively easily is probably because, to a certain extent, that they inherited a lot of S cells, and also because Earth's environment is gentler and easier to live in than planet Vegeta. Okay, seems fairly easy, but how does one increase the S cells in their body in order to become Super Saiyan? Having a gentle spirit is the best way to greatly increase one's S cells, but most Saiyans have trouble with this, which I think is why no Super Saiyans appeared for such a long time, that they became stuff of legend. However, one can't reach the quantity necessary for becoming a Super Saiyan simply by having a gentle spirit, so a certain amount of battle power is indeed necessary. Looked at in this light, it's easy to see why becoming a Super Saiyan came so easily for Goku. So, now you understand our little Star Wars reference at the beginning. In 1999, George Lucas introduced the concept of the Midichlorians to Star Wars, and it was one of the most controversial changes to the entire Star Wars universe at that time. The expanded universes did indeed try to state that Midichlorians were a bit more complex, that they don't build the Force, but they're merely drawn to it and act as indicators and catalysts in contact with the Force, which still left a bitter aftertaste for many fans. And with Toriyama's love for Star Wars, it's really hard not to see a connection here, especially due to the fact that Toriyama seems to really like the Phantom Menace, and I mean a lot, even going so far as to drawing a chibi version of Anakin Skywalker as some kind of gesture of good luck to Lucasfilms. So the S cells kind of explain Goten, Trunks and even Goku, but I feel that's not enough. So it's time for my fiancée Philly, who, if you remember, provided the backbone of our research into Super Saiyan genetics, to come back and provide me and you some biological insights to see whether S cells are actually plausible at all. So it's time for me to don lab coat again. So let's get things started. We need to look at what George Lucas was trying to liken midichlorians to. That was the mitochondria. Now, mitochondria are found inside every human cell except red blood cells. They are therefore described as organelles. Interestingly, there is much debate about the origins of mitochondria. They may have been bacterial organisms which produced a symbiotic relationship with the cell, or as a major component of all eukaryotic life forms. This includes all plants, animals, and fungi. Their role is to do aerobic respiration. Respiration that uses oxygen is aerobic respiration, and this is the most energy efficient method. It's like combustion, breaking down glucose to release oxygen and CO2, which is converted to energy to be used immediately, or so that means it can be used later and is therefore stored. Hence, why they are often referred to as the powerhouse of the cell. So how do mitochondria relate to S cells and midichlorians? How do you bring it into the world of geekery? Well, as we mentioned, Toriyama is a big fan of Star Wars, so going off of that notion, it would be fair to say that S cells might be linked to the general idea of midichlorians due to Toriyama's passion for George Lucas's world. And, okay, granted, because of this, you could just throw the argument out altogether by saying that, oh, all this information is arbitrary, and it's just a tribute, that is all. This is not something to take seriously, and in a way, you would be right. But there is something exciting which could answer a lot of questions regarding the act of Super Saiyan transformations that we just simply cannot ignore. Their progressively easy acquisition, it has to be understood. Much of the literature on the subject of midichlorians state that they have a similar history to mitochondria and that they do vary in number with their output not being energy but being linked to the Force. Varying numbers of midichlorians in individuals can be linked to mitochondria, as recent studies have shown that individuals that are either athletes or that are young people which partake in large amounts of physical activity, so basically exercise, they have been shown to have an increased number of mitochondria within their muscle tissue. Now, as we talked about before, Toriyama stated that S cell numbers varied amongst individuals and were directly linked to their Super Saiyan power, but he has not said whether they are an organelle within the cell or not. And this omission is an important one. Why is this exactly? Well, it's because one of the major flaws of the midichlorian principle is that they have been specified as an organelle. Okay, so why is this a problem? Well, that initial description of them is biologically impossible. During reproduction, the contents of the cell, including all of the major organelles such as the mitochondria or the supposed midichlorians, are provided from the egg in the mother, with the male sperm only contributing genetic information. Therefore, if midichlorians are indeed an organelle, they can only be inherited down the maternal line and not by the paternal line, so not from the father. All of his midichlorians would have had to come from his mother, Shmi Skywalker Lars. Was she a being possessed with the skills to eventually become a Jedi? On the surface level, no. I mean, maybe, but we don't see it obviously. So that is a noodle scratcher. Thusly, this is a major stumbling block in Lucas's statement about the origins of midichlorians. They're just not possible. So has Toriyama's ambiguity on the subject been a blessing? Well, he's ambiguous about a lot of things, but maybe this time it was for the best. The fact that he used the term cell and not organelle means that he is talking about a specialized cell rather than indeed an organelle. So if that's the case, this circumvents the issue of this passing down the maternal line. It will therefore allow Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, or any male Saiyan to have their specialized cells be passed down to their children because their genetics are all that are needed in order to make S cells, produce them, and therefore they can go Super Saiyan. The number of S cells in a person can vary within a lifetime. The closest human model to this would be the immune system, where exposure to pathogens and viruses can lead human white blood cells to produce particular lymphocytes for particular pathogens. And these instances are retained as memory cells. Might this mean that S cells are a part of a Saiyan's adaptive system, like the immune system, and are triggered by external cues such as battles, recovery, and diet? As for the gentle spirit, there have been links made in research recently that a human's immune system is indeed weakened under stress. Maybe Saiyans do indeed ideally prosper in stressless situations which, due to the conditions of planet Vegeta and Frieza's rule, limited the potential of Saiyans to become Super Saiyans, so only a few genetic anomalies could really raise them to become a Super Saiyan eventually, such as Bardock, Goku, and Vegeta. This would have been the next stage in Saiyan evolution, and thusly, we actually just see it accelerated with Goten and Trunks. This might be why they have so much potential. Perhaps S cells react well with human mitochondria as well, and since mitochondria are found in muscles, this leads to Super Saiyan powers being activated more easily. This is something that is really fascinating to me, and so much thanks to Philly here for backing this all up, and this really supports the notion as well that Vegeta and Raditz found Saiyan hybrids a compelling prospect. Since Saiyans are all about adaptability, as we see on the cellular level as well as diets, the ability to reproduce with humanoid life forms, this guarantees that Saiyan DNA can survive in harsh conditions, or near extinction events such as the loss of planet Vegeta. And it might also explain why they like conquering planets. It spreads their seed to other worlds, thusly expanding their reach. It's all an innate instinctive response. In fact, Gohan was the first example of this. Humans and Saiyans are perfect breeding partners, and it seems that human mitochondria in particular play well with S cells. And since humans have had a far less stressful time of it, Super Saiyan hybrids are the next evolutionary goal for Saiyans. Now, may we find out the truth from Toriyama, like more elaboration on the subject? Probably not. But thanks to his vagueness on S cells, it has made the whole idea rather plausible. Much more so than midichlorians. However, like those, Super Saiyans can now be quantified. More power levels. Yay! Without realizing it, Toriyama's seemingly standard interview has proven to be quite informative. So what are the final words of wisdom from Akira Toriyama in this interview? Him answering, how do I become a Super Saiyan? While I think you're better off not becoming like the Saiyans, your first step should be to become able to eat anything. Then go train with the Turtle Hermit. If that doesn't work, I guess you can just try gathering the Dragon Balls and making a wish. Well, suffice to say, we have the eating part already covered. So what do you guys think? Has Philly's insight into biology helped shed some light on Super Saiyans for you? Or has this just made the whole thing even more puzzling? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!